Hello and welcome to this video guide about speedrunning Future Cop L.A.P.D. I'm doing this video because I realized there was a lack of centralized information about the game, and I thought having all the information in a single video without having to ask around or dig through old forums would be helpful. That being said, you can join the Discord. I put a link in the description, and you can ask people more about the game here. We aren't a lot of runners, but the other runners are better than me, so make sure to ask them about things if you want. In this video, I'm going to cover the rules of the speedrun, the basics of weapons and movement, and the two main glitches of the run, which are clipping and slopewalking. In another video, I cover the specific routes for the all-weapon run which I run, and the any percent category. I'm not going to cover the routes for the Precinct Assault and the Glitchless speedrun because I don't know them. The game is separated in two categories, which are Crime War and Precinct Assault. The Crime War is the one-player campaign, and Precinct Assault is a 1v1 multiplayer mode that you can also play single player against the AI, which is what the speedrun does. There is also a Crime War co-op category, but there is no run on it for now. Feel free to run on it if you want to. I'm covering the PlayStation version, which I run on emulator. So I'm using EPS6E, which is what works for me, but the game is pretty bad with emulators, so you have to find something that works for you. But again, you can ask on Discord and people will be sure to help you. The PC version has its own category. It has differences in control, menu layout, and loading time. In all the Crime War runs, the timer starts on selecting Griffith Park, and the timer ends on the demolition of the primary area enemy in Long Beach. For the Precinct Assault category, the timer starts on selecting the first level weapon set, and the timer ends on the appearance of the start screen after destroying the enemy base on the final level. You have to complete these 4 levels, which are actually Urban Jungle, not Urban Grounds, there's a typo here. Proving Grounds, Venice Beach, and Hollywood Keys. And you can choose the level in any order. And you have to do all 10 difficulty level for every level, so it's actually 40 level, not 4, which makes for a pretty long run. In the Crime War all weapon category, you need to unlock all hidden weapon, which are the grenade launcher, the canine robo dog, and the riot shield. And other than that, the rules are the same as any percent. In the glitchless categories, you are not allowed to use glitches, which include clipping and slopewalking, which are glitch I'll explain later in this video. Other than that, the rules are the same as the any percent category. There is no rule on the difficulty of the game, but usually the game is run on easy as it's faster. It affects enemy strength, placement, and quantity, but mostly it reduces the health and damage from bosses. It also makes it so falling on water and walker mode transform you instead of killing you, so it's a convenience too. So we are now on the weapon selection menu to talk about the weapons in the game. I'm going to cover specific loadout for each level when I'm talking about the levels individually. But here's what you should know about every weapon in the game. There are 3 weapon slots, which each have their individual weapon set. Each weapon set has an individual hidden weapon, which can be unlocked in various levels. And the Precinct Assault mode has restriction on access to the plasma flare and the fusion torpedo. You can also get access to the hidden weapons in the Precinct Assault mode, but you need to have a file loaded with those weapons. That means you need to load the file and then go back to the to the game mode selection screen, and then you load the precinct assault and you should have the weapons available to you. For the gun weapons, they are generally low damage with high ammunition, so that means they are the least damaging weapon of your arsenal. The powered minigun is a low damage hit scan weapon that is unlocked on level 1, and it's used there. The flamethrower is a higher damage weapon than the powered minigun. It's unlocked on level 2 and it's used for most of the run. It also has the possibility to deal more damage than the base damage if you are moving towards your target, because it will hit it multiple times. The Gatling laser is basically a reskin of the powered minigun. It has more or less the same properties and it deals the same damage. And it's unlocked on level 5 and it's never used because it's useless. The electric gun is a high damage hit scan weapon that is unlocked on level 8 and it's used there in the 80% run. It's the best normal gun weapon. The riot shield is the best gun weapon by far. It has the highest damage in the entire game, even counting the heavy and the special weapons. And it has however a very short range, but it destroys projectile that makes contact with it. It's unlocked after level 6 if you meet the prerequisite for the hidden weapon. And it's used in the last level in the game, in the all weapon run. You should also note that it has an extremely strong upgrade that multiplies damage, I think, by 5. Now onto the heavy weapons. They are generally the medium between the special and the gun weapons. And they are useful throughout the run, so you shouldn't neglect hitting with your heavy weapon because they deal enough damage and they usually reduce the number of special weapons you have to use. The Hellfire weapon is your basic missile that you use on level 1, and that's about it. The Concussion Beam is obtained on level 2, and it's the best heavy weapon in the game, and you won't be switching it. It's used in the entire run, and in Precinct Assault it's always used, and you have no reason to get to change weapon once you unlock it on level 2. The hyper velocity rockets are better than the Hellfire missile, but they are unlocked on level 4, so they are never used. The fusion torpedo is obtained in level 7. It has very good damage, but the boss on level 7 is rich in a way that makes it impossible to target with a gun or a heavy weapon, so it's useless there. And it might be actually better than the concussion beam in the level 8, but not in any way that is very relevant. It's not available in Precinct Assault, so that's not relevant there either. The Canine Robo-Dog is the hidden weapon unlocked after level 4. It has average damage and extremely slow fire rate, and it also has a very slow projectile that has a very stupid AI. It's a good contender for the worst weapon in the game, and you should never use it except to have fun because it actually looks very cool. Now onto the special weapons. They are the most damaging weapons of your arsenal, and they are what you mostly use to kill the boss, so you should make sure to aim them correctly and not miss. The Mortal Launcher deals high damage but with a pretty slow fire rate, and it has a medium area of effect where it lands and explodes. Its upgrade creates a rain of mini-mortars and is pretty good to destroy static targets. You use it on level 1 and 2, as well as in the last level in the any person category. The Bounce Mines create mines that have long range, extremely high damage, but they also hurt you indiscriminately. They are unlocked on level 3 and they are used for most of the runs after that. Note that you want them to be as close to your target as possible because the damage drop off pretty severely after some distance, and they deal a lot more damage if they make direct contact with your target. The Plasma Flare Launcher is more or less a reskin of the mortar, except you can force it to explode earlier by pressing the button again, which actually makes it harder to use with no real payoff, so it's not really used. It's not on level 4 and it's used nowhere in the run. It's also unavailable in Precinct Assault for some reason. The shockwave generator is a blast centered around you. It has somewhat low damage but a very good range. It's unlocked on level 6 but only pressing tassel whenever you use it. Finally, the grenade launcher is the hidden weapon unlocked after level 2. It's an extremely damaging weapon but with a slow projectile that is moving in an arc. The projectile works somewhat like a mine in that a direct hit drastically deals more damage. You can also force the grenade to explode earlier by pressing the button again, which can be useful if you miss your target. It's used in the level 6 in the all weapon run. And that's it for every weapon in the game. So I'm catching you in game to teach you now about the basics of the movement. The first thing to know is that you have two modes you can switch at will. You have the walker mode and the overcar mode. The switching animation is pretty slow, so ideally you want to switch as little as possible. You can fire in both modes, there is no difference in damage between both modes. And all your weapon cooldowns are individual cooldown, which means that you can fire with all your weapon at once and just fire away without worrying. And the last thing to note that is common between both modes is that when you make contact with something, you deal damage to it. So ideally, if you want to maximize your damage, you just want to be in contact with something on top of spamming fire on it. Okay, so now about the walker mode. The first thing to note is that it has a low turn speed. But its strafe speed is also slow compared to the forward speed, so you want to be moving forward as much as possible. But since it has a slow turn speed, if there is something like, let's say there's a power-up next to me and I want to grab it, but I don't want to turn like that and then turn away, I can just strafe to it and grab it. But in most situations you just want to be going forward. But the most important thing about walker mode in the speedrun is that there are two jump modes to pay attention to. The first jump mode is when you are moving forward, you are jumping like that. So it's a fast jump and it goes far. On the other hand, if you are not moving, you are going to do this jump, which is a much worse jump, so ideally you want to avoid it. I think it goes a bit higher if you want to reach some ledge, so that can be useful in some specific situation if you fall down a ledge, but in most cases you just want to be using this jump. This means that if you are next to, like, let's say I want to jump there and I'm too close to do the forward jump, I can just go back a bit and forward jump like that instead of falling, or instead of doing the normal jump. So moving backward a bit and moving forward to do the forward jump instead of just doing the standing jump, which is worse. And yeah, that's all there is to know about the walker, I think. Now about the overcar mode. The first thing is that the overcar is faster, so you want to be in overcar as much as possible in the speedrun. And it has a faster turn speed than the walker mode, so if you are going to transform anyway and you are going to turn at some point, let's say I'm in walker mode and I want to turn right and then transform into the overcar mode. Well, instead of turning and then transforming, since my turn speed is slower, I should transform first and then turn to take advantage of the faster turn speed. The strafe is by default very slow, slower than the walker mode, I think. At least it's very slow compared to the overcar. One thing to note about the strafing though is that it takes your forward acceleration or your backward acceleration too, which go very fast, so you can do things like that and strafe a lot faster if you are moving forward or backward at the same time. Also, one thing to note is that in both modes there is, if you press the action button, you are going to move slower. In walker mode it's not very useful because, well, it looks funny, but that's about it. In overcar mode you might want to use it if you want to do precise positioning. It might help you a bit, especially to set up glitches. The last thing to note about the overcar mode movement is that the jump button stops you. So again, it can be useful to set up glitches. Here I'm moving, jump button, it stops me. Moving, jump button, it stops me. And yeah, that's not instantaneous, but it's very fast to stop you. So yeah, it can be useful in some cases, but ideally, of course, you want to be moving as much as possible because you're in speedrun and you're trying to go fast. That's all for the basics movement, I think. I'm back with you in game now to talk to you about the clipping glitch, which is the first important glitch of the run. And we are going to try it on the first clip of the game, which is that. So I'm going to clip, which you might think is me going through that wall, but actually the clipping is this. You can go upward very easily if you got the right, if you are in overcar first. You need to be in overcar, and you need to be more or less parallel with your target wall you want to clip on. It needs to be a somewhat small wall, so I can just do that here and start clipping up. But I can potentially do it in the corner if I got the right angle. I'm not sure if I can do it with this one. It also depends on the wall. Yeah, I can do it. But that's called a corner clip, which is used in a smaller number of area and is actually harder to do. But the normal clip is done on the side of the wall, on small wall like this. And the way you do it is you strafe towards the wall, and then you start moving in a direction depending on the angle you hit the wall at. So here I'm strafing and then moving backward when I hit the wall and can't move anymore. And it propels me upwards automatically, and then I just have to move forward again to not fall. And that's it about the clipping glitch. For example, on this clip, I can show you again. I can move forward this time instead of backward because I'm angled slightly right. Okay, so this one is a bit more annoying because the wall bounces you, but I'm stopping there and moving forward while strafing, and I'm clipping. So I'm showing you again here. I'm strafing, moving backward, and I'm clipping up. So yeah, that's the basics for the clip, which allows you to skip past most of the game. And you can do it pretty much anywhere if you know which wall works and which wall don't. So you can feel free to experiment if you want to discover new routes. But yeah, it's a pretty freeform glitch, and usually people have found very good routes to go through the game. And that's it for the clipping glitch. So we are now in Venice Beach level 4, which is a good place to explain the slopewalking, which is the other main glitch of the run. Slopewalking is when you have a slope wall like that. So as you can see, it's not straight wall, it's sloped. If you move towards it, you can't really go through it. If you try to strafe, you can't really go through it. Same in overcar mode, you won't be able to pass through it. But in walker mode only, if you jump normally towards it and start moving, you are going to just struggle. But if you jump forward and then instead of trying to move forward, you stop going forward and you go left or right, you are going to be hopped. Yeah, you can just do that on any slope in the game. You jump forward and move left or right while you are on the slope, and it's going to propel you upward, and that's a really good way to go up slope. And you can do that on most longer slopes. I'm not sure if yep, that works. I'm going to show it again, but yeah, I'm just hello. I'm just going to kill all this to make it simple for me. So I go towards the slope, I jump, I move left, and there you go. One thing to note is that the moving left or right might be easier depending on the slope and depending on the angle you hit it at. So it's really up to you to find out what works best for your slope and angle. But really, it's just as easy as that. You jump and start going left or right, and you are going to be propelled up top. So yes, that's everything for this first video about Future Crop L.A.P.D. I showcased all the glitch I needed for the run, and then I'm going to see you in the next video, which will be about going through specific routes in each level to go as fast as possible. And I see you there. Have a good day. Blah 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 blah.